This is Gabe Cook with Debate Kansas City, and I call to order our training session for how to score Student Congress. If you're watching this video, I assume it's because you're interested in being a first-time judge, and the event that you're going to take up is Student Congress. Let me thank you very, very much for dedicating your time to helping give kids the opportunity to debate. Now, before I go into the specifics of Student Congress, I'm going to talk about three things that I tell all judges, really no matter what debate event you're doing. The first is to be confident. In Student Congress, much of your time is going to be spent evaluating speeches and scoring them on a ranking of 1 to 6. Be confident that you already have the ability to hear a speech and have a pretty good idea of whether or not it was a darn good speech or one that has a lot of room for improvement. So don't be intimidated, don't be afraid, be confident. Second, be objective. When listening to speeches in Student Congress and hearing students give their points of view on different issues, make sure that you don't allow your own point of view to impose itself. You're trying to be completely unbiased, and you're just evaluating their ability to make arguments and to give a good speech. Finally, pay close attention. Have a good idea of what's happening around you, what students are being active and professional and good citizens, and the points that they're making in their speeches. Be involved in the whole session. If you do these three things, if you are confident, objective, and you pay close attention, you're going to be an excellent judge. Now, I'm going to take you through a sheet that we give all of our judges at Debate Kansas City Tournament. I'm going to walk you through it. It's how to score a session of Student Congress. I've already given you an introduction to judging, so let me describe for you what Student Congress looks like. Basically, a group of 20 to 30 kids gather in a room. They're given a packet of legislation in advance. It's usually 10 different bills. And it's 10 different bills that the Congress could be debating. Some of them are a little bit more kid-friendly topics, like maybe lunch meals in cafeterias or school uniforms, but some of them are also pretty weighty topics, like should we have universal health care. So the kids have time to prepare research and speeches on these issues. Then 20, 30 of them gather from different schools and have a session of Congress. The session is governed by a series of rules known as Robert's Rules of Order. They dictate who gets to speak and when. The person in charge of enforcing these rules is known as the presiding officer. The presiding officer is oftentimes an experienced coach who calls on the students and manages the session. But it can also be an experienced student if they are elected by the Student Congress body. And in that case, the experienced coach will become a parliamentarian, which means they're kind of there to assist the student presiding officer. And if there's any kind of conflict between the body and the presiding officer, then the parliamentarian can step in and resolve it. What's going to happen is, with the rules in place, people are going to get called on, and there's going to be pro speeches and con speeches over given pieces of legislation. After those speeches happen, after each one, they will be scored on a scale of 1 to 6. So let's say that we're debating whether or not there should be pit bulls. There's going to be a pro speaker. The score will rate the speech 1 to 6. And I'll get into more detail how you rank the speakers and all that good stuff. There's going to be a con speech. They're going to get ranked 1 to 6. And there's also questions peppered in after each speech. And everybody from the body can ask the speaker questions if the speaker allows them. They continue debate on a given issue until the debate is over, and they decide that they're ready to vote on that piece of legislation and then move on to the next piece of legislation. Middle school debaters, younger debaters tend to really churn through legislation. Some of your more experienced high school debaters might spend more time on one piece of legislation. So that's kind of the overview of what it looks like. And when the student is presiding officer, that means that they're running the show, like I mentioned. And that student gets evaluated for their performance as the presiding officer. In fact, we have created a new and separate ballot for the student as presiding officer. And you will rank them 1 to 6 each session. At most Debate Kansas City tournaments, we have 2 sessions of Congress. So you would rank the performance of the student presiding officer for each session. You would rate them 1 to 6. And if they do a good job, if they know the rules and they seem to be fair, then I would give them a 5 or a 6, because the presiding officer is a tough job. If they have to get a lot of assistance from the parliamentarian and they seem kind of shaky at times, then you might go into the 3 or the 4 range. But remember that you still have to rank the parliamentarian. You're ranking speeches, but But if there's a, or not the parliamentarian, the presiding officer, you're ranking speeches, but remember you also have to rank the PO if it is a student. So how is the winner decided? Well, students get these ranks 1 to 6, and if you have a rank, then that's going to really help you if you have a high score. However, there's another factor that comes into play. As the judge, you're going to nominate one student per session. And the other adult figure in the room, whether they're the PO or the parliamentarian, they're also going to nominate one student per session. And you get a little form here, the nomination form. You put your name, the house. Oftentimes we code the houses by letter. You generally don't have to worry about this too much, but you know, you're going to know if you're in house A, B, or C, or D because there should be a sign on the room. So then in session 1, you would put the student's name that you're nominating and the student's school. And if you're going to nominate a student, they should be an outstanding member of the session. The way I view it is it should be somebody who either gave really high quality speech or speeches, or maybe they gave a high quantity of speeches, and those were pretty good as well. So let's say that I have one student that gave 3 pretty good speeches and another student that gave 1 outstanding speech. Both of those might be up for nomination, and the thing that you have to decide is really who stuck out more. And you can also add in some other factors like how polite were they during the session? Were they trying to get things moving? Or, you know, were they kind of sitting back of the room and trying to slow things down? Even though they gave a great speech, they didn't really interact with the rest of the students. So that can kind of be a tiebreaker. If you have 2 outstanding students, you might think of, you know, who was the better democratic citizen? Who did a better job role-playing a member of Congress? So you give 1 nomination per session, and a nomination is pretty much going to guarantee that that student gets in the top 3 in their house. So you really are picking a student that's guaranteed to get an award. And that nomination can be a speaker or it can be the presiding officer. And a lot of people, if the presiding officer does an excellent job, they end up nominating the presiding officer. If you give the presiding officer a 6, you typically nominate them as well. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about evaluating the speeches. So you know that everybody that talks, you're going to evaluate them 1 to 6. How do you do that? Well, I keep a few things in mind. Delivery, were they smooth, and did they make good eye contact? Original arguments, are they just repeating things that have already been said, or are they coming up with new arguments? And clash. Does somebody make an argument and then they meet it? They directly respond to it. We really like to see clash. When someone says something and another debater directly refutes it, you should really reward clash if you see it. You can also take into account how they answer questions. After every speech, there's a time for questions. So how a student answers the questions can certainly affect what kind of score you give them. Maybe they gave a 3 speech, but then they're just phenomenal in answering the questions, and so you bump it up to a 4. Or maybe that you thought they gave a 6 speech, but then once questions come, they fold. So then you knock them down to a 5. You're looking at their analysis and their logic. Did what they say make sense? And finally, evidence. Any speech that's worthy of a 5 or even a 6, I think, needs to have at least 1 piece of evidence. Outside research, where the student tells you who wrote it, their qualifications, the publication, and the date, and then they give you a quote. We really like to see kids have well-researched speech. So you're looking for a smooth speech that makes sense. The more new arguments the kids are making, the better. The more eye contact, the better. And the more evidence, the better. Now, how do you fill out the ballot? We've shown you the PO ballot. Here's a non-PO ballot. You see that? It says speech 1, then it's got comment, speech 2, comment, speech 3, comments, etc. You have 1 ballot per student. So you're going to put the student name, you're going to put the student school, and this ballot will stay the same both sessions. Each student gets 1 ballot, and then when they give speech 1, you rank it. When they give speech 2, you rank it, so on and so forth. You'll have some students in the session that never speak for whatever reason. They don't have a ballot. The other students, they're going to try to give as many speeches as possible. You're going to rank each one, and then you have this comment section here where you can write down maybe something they did well and something that they can improve upon. At the end, you'll give your ballots to the other adult in the room, and then Debate Kansas City folks will come collect them and enter them in to be scored. Thank you so much for listening to tips on how to judge Student Congress, and have a good day.